So my topic is regional trade agreement. Introduction. A regional trade agreement is a treaty between two or more governments that define the rules of trade of all signatories to encourage free movements of goods and services across the borders of its members. The agreement also comes with internal rules that member countries follow among themselves. Tariffs are a common element in international trading. A tariff is a form of tax that is imposed on goods and services that are imported. Primary reasons to impose tariffs are one, reduction in importation of goods and services by increasing their prices, two, protection of domestic uh, producers. The definition of regional trade agreement is defined as a treaty two or more countries to encourage free movement of goods and services across the borders of its members. The agreement comes with internal rules that member countries follow among themselves. When dealing with non-member countries, there are external rules in place that the members adhere to. Quotas, tariffs, and other forms of trade barriers restrict the transport of manufactured goods and services. Regional trade agreements help to remove the barriers to trade. The example of regional trade agreements are North American Free Trade Agreement, Central American Dominican Republic Free Trade Agreement, the European Union, and Asia Pacific Economic Cooperation. Types of regional trade agreements vary depending on the level of commitment and the arrangement among the member countries. There are 6 types. The first are preferential trade areas. The preferential trading agreement requires the lowest level of commitment to reduce trade barriers. Through member countries, though member countries do not eliminate the barriers among themselves, but they also preferential trade areas do not share common external trade barriers. Second is the free trade area. In a free trade agreement, all barriers among members are eliminated, which means that they can freely move goods and services among themselves. When it comes to dealing with non-members, the trade policies of each member still make an effect. Third is customs union. A customs union is an agreement between two or more neighboring countries that remove trade barriers, reduce and abolish customs duty, and eliminate quotas. Such unions were defined by the General Agreement on Tariffs and Trade and are the third stage of economic integration. Member countries of Customs Union remove trade barriers among themselves and adopt common external barriers. The fourth is a common market. A common market is a type of trading agreement wherein members remove internal trade barriers, adopt common policies when it comes to dealing with non-members, and they also allow members to move resources among themselves freely. Fifth is economic union. An economic union is one of the different types of trade blocks. It refers to an agreement between countries that allows product, services, and workers to cross borders freely. The union is aimed at eliminating internal trade barriers between member countries with the goal of economically benefiting all the members of the countries. An economic union is a trading agreement wherein members eliminate the trade barriers among themselves. They adopt common external barriers. They allow import and export of resources, adopt a set of economic policies, and use only one currency. And the last one is full integration. Full integration of a member country is the final level of trading agreements. The rest will be continued by Madhu.
Good morning, sir. I'm gonna speak about benefits, advantages, and disadvantages. Coming to the benefits, the first benefit is boost economic growth. Member countries benefit from trade agreements, particularly in the form of generation of more job opportunities, lower unemployment rates, and market expansion. Since trade agreements usually come with investment guarantees, investors who want to invest in development countries are protected against political risks. Next benefit is volume of trade. Businesses in member countries enjoy greater incentives to trade in new markets, which have attractive trading conditions due to policies included in the agreement. And the next benefit is quality and variety of goods. Trade agreements opens a lot of doors for businesses as they gain access to new markets. The competition becomes more intense. The increased competition compels businesses to produce higher quality products. It also leads more variety of consumers. When there is a wide variety of high quality products, businesses can improve more consumer satisfaction. Next is the advantages. The first advantage is it creates more job opportunities. The wider market encourages businesses to increase production. They end up creating more jobs and income in the domestic economy. When free flow includes production factors, workers can find work in other member countries, increasing their mobility. The next advantage is better access to cheaper and more abundant capital. If capital flows freely between member countries, it makes it easier for companies to raise cheaper funds to finance investments. And the next advantage is stronger competition in international treaty negotiations. The formation of an economic union, for example, increases the size and strength of the European Union economy. It increases its bargaining power in non-member country trade agreements. And the next advantage is more choices. Consumers benefit from the free flow of trade. They have more access to higher quality and cheaper products. The elimination of trade barriers increases not only the supply and variety of products but also lower prices. The next advantage is quality improvement and innovation. Trade agreements open up competition. Increased competition forces businesses to remain competitive to survive in the market. That leads to innovation, a variety of quality or less expensive products. Next is the disadvantages. The first disadvantage is trade deflection. If the agreement reached only the free trade area stage, non member countries would take advantage of the tariff differences of their own benefit. The next disadvantage is increased economic dependence. When a member country goes into recession, it can quickly spread to other member countries. The Eurozone debt crisis in late 2009 is an example. The crisis started in Greece and then immediately spread to countries such as Italy and Spain. The next advantage is reduction of economic sovereignty and independence of economic policies. Under economic unions, member states adopt joint economic policies. It may be unsuitable to the economic interest of individual member countries. Policies may favor member countries with large economics and tend to ignore the interest of other members. And the next advantage is domestic industry bankruptcy. Increased competition kills the domestic industry due to inefficiency and low competitiveness. The pressure is getting heavier if the industry absorbs a significant workforce. The labor mobility is also low if regional trade agreements are only at the free trade area stage. That's it, sir. Thank you.
Okay, so thank you, team. Fine, you are having a slide and you are contributing some other points that is not in the slide. That is good way of presenting. But the problem is you are having a separate paper or you are having separate note and you people started reading out of it, that we are able to figure it out. So in the presentation with the points, what is shown in the PPT, you should speak from on your own, not just reading from some other material you prepared and kept separately. So the presentation, try to speak from your heart after understanding the concept you presented. Okay, so very good, team 5. So you completed the team 5 presentation, topic 5 presentation. Next I call topic 16 to go ahead with the presentation. So Gayatri, Chaitra, Raghavi and Ajit. So please be fast.
Yes, sir.
Yes, yes. So who is presenting first so that I can make them as a co-host?
I thought so.
So please all of you switch on your video so that it is easy for me to pick. So who is presenting first?
Chaitra, sir.
Chaitra. Chaitra, you already made as a co-host. You can start. And Gayatri already made as a co-host. Raghavi. So what about
Can I
Ajit?
start, sir?
Ajit, what about Ajit?
Yes, I am there.
Okay, Ajit. Yes, Chaitra, you can start.
Yeah. So good morning to one and all. So our topic is about tariff and its types and non-tariff barriers and its types. So tariff and its types will be done by Gayatri and myself. Non-tariff barriers and its types will be done by Raghavi and Ajit. Next slide. So trade barriers. A trade barriers is defined as any hurdle or roadblock that hampers the smooth flow of goods and services and payment from one destination to another. They arise from the rules and regulation governing trade either from home country, host country, or intermediary. So, trade barriers are man-made obstacles to the free movement of goods between different countries and impose artificial restrictions on trading activities between the countries. So we can see there are two types of trade barriers. One is tariff barriers and the other one is non-tariff barriers. So tariff barriers. Tariff barriers is a tax which is imposed by the government for imported goods and services. This is done to protect the domestic firm in like how tariffs are used to restrict import by increasing the goods of price of goods and services purchased from overseas and making them less attractive to consumers. So by making the price of the goods increasing, they're protecting the domestic firms. Tariffs are laid on export to generate revenue. Sometimes tariffs are also laid because to generate revenue also. Tariff is a tax or duty on the product that move across borders. The most important of tariff barriers is custom duty imposed by the importing country. Sometimes tax might also be imposed on exporting products also. There are four different types of tariff barriers. They are on the basics of origin and destination of the goods crossing national boundaries, on the basis of quantification of tariff, on the basis of purpose they serve, and the last one is on the basis of trade relations. So the first one, on the basis of origin and destination of goods crossing national boundaries. In this, we can see there are three different types, that is export duty, import duty, and tariff duty. Coming to export duty, this type of duty is levied for the goods which are being exported. So an export duty is levied by the country of origin on the commodity designated for use in the country. Import duty. An import duty is a tax imposed on a commodity originating in another country by the country for the products is designated. Transit duty. A transit duty is a tax imposed on the commodity when the goods the nation between the originating country and the country which it is considered to. The second one, on the basis of quantification of tariff. So in this we can see there are different three types, that is specific duty, ad valorem duty, compound duty. Specific duty. Specific duty, it is a fixed fee levied on 1 unit of an import goods. So in this the tariff can be varied according to the type of goods it has been imposed. For example, rupees 800 on each TV set or washing machine, or rupees 3000 per metric ton on cold rolled iron coil. The second one is ad valorem duty. This ad valorem is an Latin word which means according to the value. So here the value of the commodity on the invoice is taken as the base to calculate the duty. So for example, 3% of ad valorem duty on the C&F value of the goods imposed. The last one is compound duty. Compound duty is also called as mixed duty or combined duty. In this, we can see that both specific and ad valorem duties are together, whereas specific duty are based on factors such as weight, number, quantity, but ad valorem duties are based on the value of the goods which it is being imported. So the next will be continued by Gayatri.
The third one is on the basis of the purpose they serve. And then on the basis of purpose they serve, it is divided into reverse tariff, protective tariff, anti-dumping duty, and countervailing duty. Reverse tariff, it aims in collecting the substantial revenue from the government, but it does not really obstruct the flow of the imported goods. Here, the duty is imposed on the items of mass consumption, and the rate of duty is also low. The second one is the protective tariff. It aims at giving protection to the home industries by restricting or eliminating competition. Protective tariffs are usually high as to reduce imports. Third one is anti-dumping duty. Dumping is a commercial practice of selling goods in foreign markets at a price below the normal cost or even less than the marginal cost so as to capture the foreign market. Because of this, the home country's market will be getting low, and it will get, so much of customers will not get attracted towards the home country's products. Countervailing duty. And such duties are similar to anti-dumping duties, but they really do not serve but they are not exactly same as anti-dumping duty. They are imposed to nullify the benefits offered through the cash assistance or subsidies which are provided by the government. Here, the government gives subsidies for the export of certain products for a country, and they try to export it to another country. So because of the subsidies what they're getting, those products will be sold at a cheaper price and in the country in which they are selling. Because of this, again, the home country will get affected. On the basis of the trade relation, it is divided into single column tariff, double column tariff, and triple column tariff. Single column tariff, under the system, tariff rates are fixed for various commodity. And the same rate are made applicable to all the imports from all the countries. Double column tariff, under this system, two rates of duties are fixed on all or some commodities, and the lower rate is made applicable to the country which are friendly or the country with which there is bilateral trade agreement, and the high rate is applicable to other countries. Triple column tariff. Here, the three different rates of duties are fixed. They are general tariff, international tariff, and preferential tariff. The first two categories have a minimum variance, but the preferential tariff is substantially lower than the general tariff and is applicable to the friendly countries where there is bilateral relationship. And the next, non-tariff barriers will be explained by Raghavi and Ajit.
Non-tariff barriers. It is non-tariff barriers is a barrier that rises and obstacles the flow of goods over the sea market and do not affect on the price of the goods. There are certain types on non-tariff barriers such as quota system. This is the first system where the company will importing the commodity, such as importing certificate, certificate of origin, and certificate concircular invoice. These are the three certificates which is important for the these are the three certificates which is important for for importing commodity from one country to another country to restrict imports to some certain extent and prevent free import of commodity that are not necessary. Next will be continued by Ajit.
Good morning, sir. Other non-traffic barriers are preferential treatment to the trading blocks. Some countries from regional groups and offers special concessions and preference to the member countries. As a result, trade is developed among the member countries and allows the advantages to the all member countries. Custom regulations. Custom regulations and administrative regulations are very complicated in many countries. There are a number of commodities acts pertaining the movement of drugs, mineral, bullions, etc. Restrictions under such acts are useful to curtail imports. Tax administrations also act as a barrier to the marketing among the countries. The next is state trading. State trading refers to the import-export activities conducted by the government or government agencies. State trading is useful to restrict import as an final decision is taken by the government. Such state trading act as a barrier restricting the freedom of private parties. Next is health and safety measures. Many countries have specific rules regarding health and safety regulations which are applicable to imports. Such health and safety measures are mainly applicable to the raw material and foods items. Next is foreign exchange regulations. Countries impose various restrictions on the use of foreign exchange earned through the imports. Some of the restrictions are restrict the demand for the foreign exchange and use the foreign exchange reserve in the best possible manner to the flow of capital to maintain the value of exchange rate. Under such regulations, the foreign exchange earned should be surrendered to the government. The government provided the foreign exchange to the businessmen as per the priority that are fixed periodically. Thank you, sir.
So, okay, so team number 16, as mentioned as the first 4 teams, you completed. So again, I am just saying, you people are mostly reading the PPT. It's a presentation. So only if you present on your own words and example, then only the higher marks can be given. So just for mere just reading or reading from the PPT or hints is not encouraged. Okay. So next, I call upon the topic 7 team. Balaji and Junaid Basha. Balaji and Junaid Basha. So whoever, whenever they are called, they are not presented. So they cannot be considered as of now as a presenter. So they have to speak first. Yes, you can start presenting.
Hello, sir.
Yes, you can start.
Hi, sir. Good morning.
Morning.
Vinay Kumar. Our topic is foreign direct investment. Introduction and forms will be explained by me, followed by several types of FDI will be explained by Sulu, and advantages and disadvantages will be explained by Durga Prasad. Introduction, sir. Foreign direct investments means an individual or a group of individuals who are incorporated or incorporated with the public or private company investing is money in other countries. Increasing foreign direct investment is usually one indicator of growing economy. Foreign investment plays a positive role in foreign direct investment. One a company is investing in another company, another country. It is called foreign direct investment. Either it is a private or public sector. Now, why FDI in India? There is a strong relationship between FDI to foreign countries in India growth, economic growth. Because large inflow in investment are needed in country to achieve a sustainable high trajectory of economic growth in India. FDI benefits the consumer to reduce prices of goods services in a long run, which additionally to foreign players to the market. Each company strives to do its best, increasing the health competition in the market, and it is beneficiary to the customers. In India, the FDI very grown to the Indian economy. Forms of FDI. There are two forms of FDI: greenfield investment and merger and acquisition. Greenfield investment. Greenfield investment is a form of foreign direct investment where a parent company builds its operation in foreign country from the ground up. In addition to building new facilities, most parent companies also created new long-term jobs in foreign country by hiring a new companies. Example, a company starts its operation in new country from the ground up. Its greenfield investment. Greenfield investment means it is a direct investment where the parent company operates is a company in another country with another country. It's a with a long term jobs. Example, Toyota and Honda is Toyota and Honda they are directly investing from a foreign country to India with the same company name. Mergers and acquisition. Mergers and acquisition is general term, refers to the consolidation of companies or assets where there are several types of transaction classified under the notes of M&A. Mergers and acquisition. And mergers means combination of two companies to form a new company. Mergers means, for example, mm, some foreign company which is merged to Indian company to develop and to make the sales and good profit in the foreign company. Uh, acquisition means, mm, acquisition means when one company from foreign country is directly buying or acquiring the another company in the foreign country is called acquisition. Example, Union Bank and the Standard Charters. Types of FDI will be explained by Sukrut.
Good morning, everyone. I will talk about types of FDI. In that three types, first one is horizontal FDI, and second one vertical FDI, and third one is conglomerate FDI. Coming to the horizontal FDI, in that the funds are invested in the same industry, but on foreign firm that have a similar goods. In horizontal FDI, the advantages is like increase in the market share. We can increase in the market share. It is a bigger advantage in the horizontal FDI. Through that, the company can grow in a huge base. And the second one is reducing the competition. Through that, if we enter into the horizontal FDI, the competition will be less, because we have upgrading through the upgradation of the technology. And third advantage is like creating an economies of scale. It is also a major advantage in horizontal FDI. And the one of the disadvantage in horizontal FDI is reduction in flexibility. As I said, horizontal FDI is like the investing in the same industry as Apple investing in the Samsung for some technical upgradation, like that. And coming to the second one, vertical FDI. In that, where the investment is made within the supply chain, and but not directly the same industry. In that, there is a two types. One is forward vertical integration and backward vertical integration. And forward vertical integration is like where the firm invests in a foreign company that along with the supply chain, which, for example, for Hershey's, a chocolate brand company purchases Alibaba share of where it sells its products. And second one is like backward vertical integration. And in the backward vertical integration is because a firm purchasing a supplier with a potential supplier in a supply chain. And it is if Hershey's US chocolate manufacturer may look to invest in cocoa producers in Brazil. It is a best example for backward vertical integration. And coming to the last one, conglomerate FDI. Conglomerate FDI where can invest is made completely in different industry. In other words, it is not linked with any direct way to the investor's business. And it is like the investing in a different field. It is not linked with their business. And for example, Walmart is investing in a BMW is a totally a different field. Like it's a German automobile manufacturer. It's a conglomerate FTA. And now next is followed by Durga Prasad. Advantages, disadvantages.
Hello, advantages and I am speaking about advantages and disadvantages of foreign direct investment. Firstly, I am speaking about advantages in that boost to foreign trade. FTA promotes international trade as it allows production to flow to parts of the world, which is the most effective in for FTA. For example, Apple was able to conduct FTA into China to assist with manufacturing of its products. And next, reduce regional and global tensions by using FTA. As we see the example of Apple, a supply chain is created between the different countries as a part, and it will create the diversion of the labor. And next one is sharing of technology, knowledge, and culture. Using FDI, it allows the transfer of technology, knowledge, and culture. For instance, when a firm of US invest in another from India, it has said that how the firm has to be run, how the technology is coming from foreign to India. These are the different technologies and knowledges were shared with us, and the culture is also sharing. And also diversification. The diversification for business perspective, FDI reduce risk through the diversification. FDI will controls the risk of the reducing the risk of the businesses through other nations, which spreads towards the nation. Low costs and increased efficiency. FDI can benefits from the low labor cost. Often businesses will share production to nations abroad offer cheap labor. It will helps to reduce the labor cost and also increases in the efficiency of the products. Tax intensives. Reduced level of corporation tax can save business billions each and every year. Tax can reduces by using the FDI. Employment and economic boost. By using the FDI, when many of the investment of in another countries, it creates jobs to new companies and new factories. With employees earning more money, they are created demand for other goods in the economy. Now I am speaking about disadvantages of FDI. In that, first one is foreign control. Foreign control. One of the main fear particular among the developing nations is that they can essentially be brought and controlled by foreign powers. Labor power and capital are relatively cheap in other countries, such as Vatican and Valiant countries, and US as a developed nation can come into significant. Loss of domestic jobs. By using the FDI, when significant sum of money are transferred to another, it is invested that would be has been used in the home market. It may boost employment in foreign countries, but not that may temporarily loses the jobs at home countries. Risk of political and economic change. By using the FDI, when the government which changes, it is difficult to invest in the it is difficult to investors to invest in the country because the government is fluctuation. So the investors are facing difficulties towards the political and also inflation in economy. The presence of FDI has also contributed of inflation in the country that spent a lot of money on advertising and economic development. Convertibility of currency. It is difficult in FDI using investing in convertibility of currencies underdeveloped countries as prescribed to investment. It is difficult to converting the currencies from different countries to different countries, and also disappearance of cottage and small scale industries. Due to FDI, there will be no demand for the domestic countries because foreign multinational companies are take over all the domestic companies products. Example, multinational soft drinks are coming in market, which is domestic companies are not under in our market. Thank you.
Okay, so the question to the three members of the team with respect to FDI. So team, can you tell the recent challenge in India with respect to FTA? So in the last 2 years at least, did you heard any news with respect to FDI, with respect to any industry? So anyone can answer. Foreign directors in India, recent challenges.
Sir, mainly one of the issue is like resource challenge, sir.
Sir,
Resource challenge.
what is resource challenge, sir?
Sir, if company entering joining the hands with another company, the main problem is they face a technology and that resource issue, sir.
Sir, what is foreign direct investment? With respect to foreign direct investment, what is the recent issue faced by any of the company? That is I'm asking. I'm not asking about human resource or other technological challenges. With respect to FDI, because of FDI, any company got affected, any issues happened with respect to FDI in India in recent years? Any industry? Okay, thank you team 18. So next I will call the team number 1. So Robin, Kirtana and Jitu. So Alan is in permission. Okay, so team number topic number 1, Robin, Kirtana and Jitu. Can switch on the videos and start. And team, topic number 18 you can.
Okay, shall I start?
Yes.
Good morning, everybody. Ours is Team 3 and our topic is role of World Bank. Next slide. Next slide. So introduction, coming to the introduction of World Bank, it was established in the year 1944 at Bretton Woods Conference along with the International Monetary Fund. Its headquarters is in Washington, DC, and the founders of World Bank are John Maynard Keynes and Harry Dexter White. So the World Bank refers to an international financial institute that provides loans and grants to the government for low and middle income countries for the purchase of for the purpose of purchasing capital projects. So the World Bank is divided into 5 organizations. The next slide. So the firstly, that is IBRD, International Bank for Reconstruction and Development. It mainly focuses on economic development and eradication of poverty. IBRD provides funds to the projects that seek to improve transportation, infrastructure, education, and domestic policies for consciousness of energy investments and healthcare, and to improve sanitization. And the next is International Development Association. This institute mainly aims to assist the poorest nations in growing more quickly to reduce poverty and provide funds to the economic human development projects in world's poorest nations. And third, it is International Financial Corporation. Finance Corporation. It offers investments, advises, and assist management services to increase the private sectors and in development of less developed countries to create opportunities for the people to escape poverty and achieve better living standards by providing financial resource for the private enterprises in promoting competitive markets and supporting for business. So next is a Multilateral Investment Guarantee Agency. It is an international financial institute which offers political risk insurance and credit enhancement guarantee. These guarantees helps the investors to protect foreign direct investment against political and non-commercial risk in developing countries. The next is International Center for Settlement of Investment Disputes. It is an international institute for legal dispute resolution between the international investors and the states. So next is, it is a multilateral specialized institution to encourage the international flow of investments and mitigate non-commercial risk. Next slide. Coming to the roles of World Bank is an international banking organization established mainly to control the distribution of economic support between the member nations by giving loans to them during the times of financial difficulties to the countries. World Bank helps in fighting poverty. So I can't see the screen.
I think Om Niklesh has to rejoin.
Shall I continue, sir?
Yes.
The World Bank helps in fighting poverty by offering developmental assistance to the middle and low income countries. It provides a loan for long run capital for developing countries for economic development and reconstruction. It induces long run capital investments for assuring balance of payments. It offers advices and training in both private and public sectors. Next slide. So World Bank promotes capital investments in developing countries by providing guarantee on private loan or capital investments. IBRD also provides loan for productive activities on considering conditions only. Promoting the economic development of world's poorer country by providing loans is a main role of World Bank. World Bank acquires most of its financial resources by borrowing an international bond market. It also encourages private enterprises in developing countries through its International Financial Corporation. And next slides will be explained by them.
Today I'll be explaining about the importance of World Bank. They provide extensive experience and financial resources to the member countries. Financial resources of the bank help the poor countries increase their economic growth, reducing poverty and better standard of living to the underdeveloped countries, and also granting development loans. They also they grant development loans to the underdeveloping countries such as India. Underdeveloped countries such as Central African Republic and Malaya, so such countries. So third point is it also provides loans to various governments for agriculture purposes and nature well-being. And fourth point is it promotes foreign investments to other organizations by providing loans and guaranteeing the assurity. The next point is they also give advice to member countries by monetary aspects and service also, as they have experience too. And next point is World Bank encourages the development of industries. As the industries are the main sources of money income, they develop other countries to come up with the industries as much as possible. Next point is World Bank is working towards achieving sustainable growth. Each country has the main aim of the World Bank is to each country should have a sustainable growth in their own country, so as to improve the life being of each of the human in the world. And next point is increasing the opportunities for jobs and business. By increasing the industries, World Bank by providing loans to the industries, World Bank is able to provide employment to all the people, and through that increasing the well-being as I said. And next point is through investment, it plans to promote socio-economic status to the society. And yeah, next I'll be speaking about the advantages of the World Bank. World Bank, first point is financial support. World Bank provides financial support to developing countries achieve their goals by providing them with financial and technical support. It gives out loans as they required for the development of the industries. Second point is low interest rate. Compared to other banks, World Bank gives a much lower rate interest to member countries, as their one of the main aim is to help the countries. Next is equality. The bank's main objective is to bridge the gap between the rich and the poor. So it doesn't distinguish between the poor, that the interest rates should be different. It's almost the same, and it is at the lesser rate. Next is overcome poverty. As I said, one of the main aim is to overcome the poverty. They are working towards it. And the bank has helped many poor people within the nation by providing them basic needs like healthcare facilities and food to reduce malnutrition. Sixth point is social development projects. IBRD participates in various projects like offering medical care and development projects and infrastructure and access to education among other projects. And next will be effective firms. It ensures firms are no longer subsidized, and they either become successful or failure. This increases the effectiveness of the firm. Next is encourage trade. World Bank leads to a reduction of the trade restrictions. By reducing the restrictions, countries are able to trade from one country to other countries, so that they are able to grow, and it's a win-win situation for both the countries. And next is favorable policies. As the main aim of the World Bank is to provide and have a sustainable growth throughout the world, they don't have rigid policies or any fixed, so that it is too much burden for the people who are borrowing the money. And next is supports agriculture. One of the major projects of the World Bank is to support agriculture, through which we are able to conserve the source, conserve the nature too, and it can be a very good source of income throughout the world. And next is help using reducing unemployment by giving loans to many industries and many industries to open up industries. We are able to reduce the unemployment throughout the world. And next is a standard for innovation, support for innovation. By giving loans to people who are innovative, it also helps them by it also helps their innovation by supporting them to open industries. And again, it is all interrelated, through which they are able to reduce the unemployment. Stands for gender equality. It is also aiming to reduce the gender bias by even helping the women enterprises and entrepreneurs. Next is a partnership framework for India by World Bank. The World Bank lends around 27 million to India, and it is the largest country of IBRD support. In September 2017, the World Bank Group began a new partnership with India. The main aim of this project is to conserve the social architecture of India by protecting and developing and re-innovating all the dams and some places like temples, so that the agriculture and so that the social culture of the India is not faded away. The partnership emphasizes an efficient and sustainable growth path and fosters competitiveness to create new job opportunities and investments in human capital. That's it, sir. Thank you.
Okay, so the team 3 had presented the topic, and Om Vignesh and Jnaneshwari, can you add some points with respect to World Bank, how they supported India during this COVID period? Any support received from World Bank to India?
Sir, they were actually helping for this vaccination developments. I don't have much of idea about that, but they did help India to develop vaccination, so that the world can, all the countries can help.
They funded, what mode they funded, when they funded?
No, I don't have the correct idea, sir, but they did help with monetary and also help in transporting vaccines. I mean, sharing the resources from other countries for the development of vaccine.
Okay, so thank you, team.